Roster work plan. This is Jessie Sloan, CTE data consultant. The agenda will cover what is roster, roster codes, and roster CTE. What is roster? Roster is a collection within WISE Data Portal and WISE Dash for District of course information. It collects data about students and teachers associated with the courses. Roster data is required for all grade levels in school districts. So all of them, 3K all the way through 12th grade. Data will be entered into your student information system and is pushed to WISE Data, and then will end up in WISE Dash for District. This data collection is done through your student information system vendor, CourseMaster. Here's the direct link to DPI's webpage for roster collection. There is everything roster on this webpage, and I will summarize a few key areas for CTE. DPI collects many data elements for roster. These are some of the individual data elements that are collected from your courses. Utilizing the roster webpage link on the previous slide will bring you to this webpage, and this is a snippet. So you could read more information. Here's the roster work plan. It is a PDF and a Google Doc and can be saved to your Google Drive. Please make a copy as this link is view only. This is your historical record of your course setup. When I dig into errors, I ask these data element questions. We cannot communicate between you and me if we don't know what the data elements are that are going in to career education reporting or that are composed of your courses. Data element definitions need to be shared with data entry personnel. We do not want data entry personnel to guess and create a different structure for career pathways and identification of concentrators, or which courses are dual enrollment and which are not. And this can happen if we're not providing the right information about our courses to your data entry personnel so that they set up the SIS vendor correctly. So we will start with what is outlined in the red box and identify course title, roster code, grade level, the school department, which often is also called program area, but it means school department. And I put teacher license here because we need to make sure that we have the properly licensed teacher for the content being taught. And then performance-based conversion is a reminder that we are collecting grades on your courses and that we convert your grades basically to pass-fail. So what's a CTE course? Let's quickly review the definition of CTE course for data reporting. A CTE course is a secondary or high school course that is offered through one of the 6 recognized Wisconsin CTE program areas listed here. You often refer to them as your CTE departments. In addition, the course must also be taught by an appropriately licensed CTE instructor within the specific discipline or area. Remember, there are multiple pathways to obtain licensure to teach a CTE course, including experience-based licensure, but individuals must apply for those licenses. This is especially important for educators seeking to obtain appropriate licensing in the health science program area, which can now be acquired through an experience-based license in CTE, but the individual again has to apply for the license. So this slide is to help you with some licensing information for CTE. We're not going to go into depth at all, but usually people have questions about how to get to these websites, and so this is only for reference only. So this is the courses webpage at DPI, and this web page is used to house our roster downloads each year. So you can download all of the roster state sched codes and review them through an Excel file. Many of the SIS vendors also have the roster codes built into their systems. But just remember, your teachers usually don't have that level of access into your student management portion of your SIS vendor. So if you're working with teachers and want them to select roster codes, you're going to need them to come to this courses webpage and download the correct year and be able to review and select roster codes. Also available on our courses webpage is a way to search and filter that sheet before you even download it. So CTE folks might want to come in and they might want to filter and look at codes that only pertain to a certain pathway that your school is teaching to, or they just want to look at just the CTE ones because you're picking out a whole variety of them. So this is a snippet of the courses download. And this is what I use to communicate with schools and teachers because I don't have a SIS vendor, so I need some way to see what you're looking at so we can have a conversation. When I work with teachers in schools, I download this and then I like to freeze this first row so that I can scroll through the whole file. And then I also like to filter it by the columns I circled in red. I like to usually filter by CTE so that I'm only looking at CTE. And then when I ask teachers or schools, are you looking for courses in a certain pathway because you have a pathway that we're trying to update? I could also come in and filter by one of the 16 career clusters here. And then the other thing to notice is you're going to hear DPI use roster code. So here's all the code roster codes in column A, and these roster codes are synonymous with SCED. So for every roster code, you could come over here and look at column K to see SCED. And then also on this slide, I just gave you the other titles of columns to help you out. So there is non-CTE versions of all the courses, and there's CTE versions of most of the courses. And you just need to kind of keep that straight. When you are working with a licensed CTE teacher and their courses, you need to just be picking out the CTE version of a course. And this is very important because the CTE version of a course is what we use to calculate CTE participants. So if you accidentally pick a non-CTE roster code for one of your CTE courses, it's not going to correctly report participants because it's telling us that's not a CTE course. All right, we need to identify if a course offers programming that pertains to certified career education, non-certified career education, or dual enrollment. That means what courses have work-based learning, do they have an IRC, and are they dual enrollment? This is part of our course organization, and data entry folks need to know if any course has these components when they set up a course in the course master. So some of the SIS vendors add these data points to individual students. They have that capability to just do this without setting up a course. It's hard to maintain that sometimes because you have to keep lists of kids and what they're doing, and you have to remember to add it to every single kid. So sometimes it's easier to set up the course and then enroll the students into the course that's got all those data elements already identified. And it's just a way of managing your data. And I've already briefly spoken about performance conversion type, but just a reminder, the performance conversion type is telling us basically if based on your grading, if a student passed or failed. And again, we're reporting for all grades 9 through 12. And DPI auto calculates that performance conversion type. You just have to send your grades. Okay, so now we are on the blue portion of the roster work plan, and that specifically goes over whether or not a course is dual enrollment, if it's advanced, meaning AP or International Baccalaureate, or if it's an arts course, or if the course offers an industry recognized credential, or if the course is meant to be work-based learning. So these are called programs. So here's an example of using your course handbook to record all this information. And it's just using those data elements and then saying what they are, and then adding this into your course handbook as a place to archive the information. We tend to keep course handbooks from year to year, so that would be a great place to keep all your notes. And this is just an example, another way to lay it out. So these are just examples of how you can maintain this. All right, so this is row 2 of the roster work plan, and row 2 is dedicated to laying out your career pathways. So when you create a career pathway, it is going to have a name. So I'd like you to name the cluster that it sits in. There's 16 clusters, so name that. And then each career pathway should have an IAC code, which is a numerical value. That's going to help send the data, and that IAC code informs us or gets attached to a student, and that informs us at DPI that this student has completed 2 or more courses in your career pathway, and they get sent to DPI as a concentrator. So you will select your cluster, and then you will select an IAC code. Then you might want to write the title of this down, and then you're going to list all the CTE courses that go into that career pathway. So the minimum is 2. You have to have a minimum of 2 CTE courses in each career pathway, and the maximum is up to you. So you could have 5, you could have 10. It's completely up to you. But anytime a student takes any 2 of those courses, then they get identified as a concentrator when they are in 11th and 12th grade. So I also, on this next slide, am just reminding you of how to use the IAC download. So you can see all 216 IAC codes. There is also a link on the IAC download webpage that allows you, or that shows you that DPI did some research and helped select just 16 of them, 1 for each cluster, so that you can narrow it down. IAC codes, and here's an example of an IAC code in the cluster of agriculture. So 3.03, the title is fishing and fisheries, just for example. And you will see on the IAC download that there's this column C for NTO, and it will say F or M in it. And what that means is that career pathway is a non-traditional occupation for females. Or if it said M, it could be a non-traditional occupation for males. And what that means is it's telling us through labor market information that that occupational group doesn't have enough men or women in it that are represented in the occupation, and that we want to encourage more of that gender to get involved in that occupation. So agriculture, most of them are all NTO for females. So we're always trying to get more females into agriculture. That's what this column C means. All right, on row 2 of the roster work plan is the program area. So again, this refers to CTE for this row 2. And so for each of your CTE courses, you should list the department that teaches those courses. You are allowed to have different CTE departments list courses in each of your pathways. That is totally up to you and how complicated you want to make your data. But when you do that, that's why you need to list the departments. So you can keep track of who's teaching what. All right, now we're going to discuss this red box in blue. So career pathways for Carl Perkins need to meet size, scope, and quality. So we want robust career pathways that help support our students to get into whatever it is they're going to do after they graduate, whether it's they go directly into the workforce, or that they go off to college, or that they go into the military, or they do some other type of volunteer service. So for each of our CTE courses, we also want to identify, are any of them dual enrollment? Do any of our CTE courses offer an industry recognized credential, and what is it? And then we want all of our pathways to have a work-based learning opportunity. So we need to see that we actually have it, so that we make sure that our pathways, again, are robust and also meet size, scope, and quality. And the only way you're truly going to know that is if you write out all the components of your pathways and lay out if any of the courses meet these dual enrollment, IRC, or work-based learning. Then you can provide this sheet to your data entry person to show each of the components so they can set up the sys vendor to report correctly. All right, here is some information, some links to the career education programs and a graphic. Work-based learning, there are 8 different types. However, 5 of them are called non-certified. So they are listed here: internship, local co-op, supervised agriculture experience, simulated work site, school-based enterprise, and entrepreneurship student business. These 5 work-based learning types are non-certified, meaning your school gets to create these types of experiences. Now, all of these types need to meet the 6 criteria of work-based learning. So your school district needs to create how they are going to meet the 6 components, the 6 criteria of work-based learning. And then all you have to do is put the students in these work-based learning courses and then grade them. Right. This slide is going over certified career education programs. So certified means that an outside organization has created the curriculum to run these programs. So all IRCs, all of them, they are created by outside organizations. And your teachers either go to training or take a course to be able to teach an IRC to your students. So they are following somebody else's content and curriculum, or they have to have a test that the student takes to earn the IRC. So all industry recognized credentials are certified, which means at the end of grading, you have to go in and add the certificated program status to show how the student finished. Okay, then you have these types of work-based learning. There's state co-ops, in particular DPI occupational and DPI employability are on report cards and Carl Perkins. And then there's youth apprenticeship. And these are programs, all of them, that DPI or DWD run, and that we inform you of how to run your program. And so that's why they are called certified, because we're outside organization informing you how to run these programs. So here's the link to certificated program status. So for any of the certified programs, at the end of grading, for each student, you will get a list of students from the teacher that's responsible for those students, and you will add the A, B, C, or D. A meaning student met requirements, B meaning the student's continuing because maybe it's multiple courses. C, the student has left the certificated program before completion, so maybe they moved. Or D, the student completed the program but did not meet the requirements for the certificate. So that's what certified means. It's an extra data point that needs to be added at the end of grading. And again, this can apply to any student in grades 9 through 12. But we got to make sure we get this information to the data entry person. All right, this is an example of a WISE data portal export called roster course offerings. I like to look at this when I am filling out my roster work plans because it gives me an idea of how to check myself, but also to see if something is surprising me on the courses and how they're reporting. So you can see at the top, there's all these columns. It's going to give you, there's more columns because we're starting here with F, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands. You can see your local course name, and then you can also see DPI course is the roster code, and then the roster title here. And in this example, I had a school that was trying to count all the students in dual enrollment, and they were coming up short. So we came in and we looked at their course offerings, and we sorted it by dual enrollment. So we could see, and we were particularly looking at this CAP pre-calculus course. And what we noticed here was two sections that were not identified as dual enrollment. So these students were not being counted. So that's how you can use your course offerings sheet, is to come in and see how many students are counting in each of your sections. And then you can also see how your sections are being identified. They're being identified as dual enrollment for most of them, but not these two yellow ones. So they just fixed it. All right. Thank you, everyone.